I went in with an open mind, but I'll skip the sequel, thank you very much.
So, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. This hasn't exactly been one of my most anticipated movies of the year, mainly because of the first Fantastic Beasts movie. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, but I struggled to get into that film's forgettable meandering plot that went from extreme comedy to an admittedly somewhat interesting dark subplot, but they didn't complement each other well, and I didn't really like the film overall. As such, I wasn't even sure whether or not I was going to see its sequel, particularly after the reviews dropped. But after the results came in from that poll on Twitter, I decided to give it a chance, even though the odds weren't exactly in the film's favour. Should I have just skipped it, or was it a significant upgrade from the last film? Well, there's a lot to talk about, so let's get straight into it. The film has a relatively strong beginning, and for the first act or so, I was mostly into it. Parts of it were a little hard to take seriously, but the over-the-top humour from the first has mostly been toned down, and with the plot still being established, I was kind of interested to see where it was going. Well, I say plot, it's better described as plots. One of the main issues that's been brought up by critics and audiences is how there's a lot of characters, and they're not wrong. A good chunk of them don't even add that much in the grand scheme of things. And while the acting is fine, a special mention to Jude Law for channeling Richard Harris's Dumbledore incredibly well, the characters just aren't particularly interesting. And that makes the second act, when these several stories are well underway, really boring. While things are happening, none of it is very interesting, and when you think back to it having seen the whole thing, little of it actually has any real relevance to later events. It also doesn't help that some of the scenes feel very messily crafted. There's one bit in particular after a character comes out of the French Ministry of Magic that's so unbelievably sloppy and confusingly put together that it really took me out of the film. And there's also a few instances where characters will randomly appear in locations during a scene, even though just a few extra seconds of footage could have easily made it less jarring. There's also quite a few nitpicky moments that aren't actually that big a deal, but they were a lot more noticeable because I was so uninterested in what was going on in the main story. To be fair, my mind wasn't really wandering or anything, I was still watching the film, and seeing Hogwarts again did bring a smile to my face, but that excitement was short-lived before I was quickly bored again. Okay, I think I've made my point that the second half really drags. But then all the characters and plot lines eventually intertwine in the final act where big things finally start happening, and it does become somewhat more interesting. It's still not great, but it's a lot more entertaining than what came before it, and I did leave the cinema feeling more positive towards the film. But before I bring this all to my overall conclusion, let's quickly talk about the end twist, which I won't spoil, but it was something I heard was sparking controversy amongst Potter fans. For me, it was just kind of unnecessary, adding another layer to this universe that wasn't really needed. And that sums up both Fantastic Beasts films quite well. They're expanding on a story that didn't need expanding on, and its execution just isn't working for me. Both of these movies' plots just flounder around for 2 acts before important events actually happen at the end. And while there's quite a bit to like, and it's not a consistently boring film, I wind up reflecting on the whole experience and just go, eh. I'll score it 2.5 stars. After all the backlash it received, I was expecting to dislike it more than I did, so I am glad I saw it, but in the end, I'm still incredibly lukewarm on this whole franchise. Well, we'll see what happens with the next entry in a couple of years' time, though I can't imagine it's going to be too drastic an improvement over its predecessors. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe to all that good stuff, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye! Why was it even called The Crimes of Grindelwald?